You're going to be empowered by the girl power duo talking about group fitness in this episode. Staci Alden and Lauren George are our special guests this week on the Fitness Business Podcast. If this is your first time tuning into the show, welcome. Make sure you go to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com and you can listen to the entire catalog of shows. If you're a regular listener, thank you. We appreciate you coming back. And finally, if you get value from any of our shows, we would be so grateful if you would post a review on iTunes. Howdy, folks. I'm your host, Dory Nugent, and today our guests, Staci Alden and Lauren George, will enlighten us on finding and hiring group fitness instructors. Staci, she's the group fitness director of Pro Sports Club in the beautiful state of Washington, and Lauren George is the co-creator of Barre Above and Fit Biz Club. They are both experts in their field, so I'm expecting a lot of great information from this episode, and so should you. We will hear from Staci and Lauren in less than 2 minutes. First, a huge thank you to Rex Roundtable for supporting our show.
Professional facilitation with a group of non-competing owners to stay ahead of the industry curve is the USP of Rex Roundtables. To find your local roundtable, go to rexroundtables.com. That's rexroundtables.com.
Thank you, Rex, and make sure you check out www.rexroundtables.com.
Get your pen ready now for Keep Me's Fit Bizpiration.
Here are your 3 tips to improve your group fitness program. Tip number 1, offer incentives and referrals to current staff for finding new fitness talent. Number 2, have candidates teach a live class and attend so you can see how well they interact with the members. And tip number 3, have new instructors help out and pitch in different departments so they have the opportunity to get to know members and invite them into their class. Next week, I interview Keith Burnett, CEO of Global Market for Les Mills International, and we're going to talk about his physical drive and mental determination to complete a 42-day journey across the Atlantic Ocean. After this week's full interview, I'll introduce you to Keith, and you'll hear why you need to come back to hear his interview.
One Fit Stop is modern fitness studio software built for the growing multi-location studio, providing scheduling, client management, programming, payment collection tools, and more that will set your business up to grow. To find out more, go to onefitstop.com or click on the link in today's show notes.
It is now time to transition into this week's interview with Staci Alden and Lauren George. All right, everybody, welcome back for another Facebook Live Fitness Business Podcast Fanatics Special. But as you can see, this time I have 2 different guests. I have 2 new guests, 2 new fanatics. I'm so excited to introduce them to you all. First, we have Staci Alden. Staci, welcome to our Fitness Business Podcast live event today.
Hi, thank you so much.
Yes. You know what? I would love for you in about 30 seconds just to tell the whole Facebook world who you are, what you do, where you're from, and maybe just a little something special about yourself.
All right. I'm from Seattle, Washington. I oversee a large team of group fitness and private Pilates instructors. And when I say large, it's about over 100 instructors. We have 3 locations and several studios, and something fun about myself is that I actually love to help group fitness managers find answers and help them lead and succeed with their own teams. So I have all of that on my website, my social media channels, so you can follow me there for any more answers you need.
All right. So we have a problem solver on board tonight. So, if we have run into any problems, Staci, I'm calling on you. Okay. Also, we have Lauren George with us. Lauren, thank you so much for attending today. And why don't you take about 30 seconds to tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Howdy, everyone. And thank you so much, Dory, and the Fitness Business Podcast for having me. I've been a big fan for a long time, so I'm thrilled to be here. I am one of the co-creators of Barre Above, which is a barre education program. I'm also the co-owner of the Fit Biz Club, where we put on fitness business workshops and retreats. And then I have formerly owned a group fitness studio in Clemson, South Carolina. I currently live in Starkville, Mississippi. I've also ran the group fitness programs at larger health clubs in big cities like Dallas, as well as campus or recreation. So lots of different kind of roles there and sizes of markets, which is always fun. And then if I'm not teaching group fitness, you can probably find me at some kind of sporting event with my husband.
Well, I certainly do see you at the sporting event, so I can verify that is true. All right. Well, I'm so excited. Like I said, not only are you two right in the mix in the industry and in it day in and day out and living through pre-COVID, COVID, post-COVID, but you're also what we call our Fitness Business Podcast fanatics. And I just want to take literally 15 seconds to explain what that is to everybody out there watching us today. Fitness Business Podcast is something that we started the beginning of the year, and we've had so much success with it. And we do it by quarters. So this is quarter 2, and you are 2 of our Fitness Business Podcast fanatics. That means you guys are such great promoters of all the episodes. You're always giving us your feedback. You're on your social media. You're just really big fans of the podcast. And we are so delighted to have you guys as fanatics. So I think it's time to get started with our content. What do you girls think? Yes?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. So tonight's topic is all about group fitness. Now, we did this before in quarter 1 with our fitness panel, but this time we've changed up the questions. So Staci and Lauren, I'm going to ask you completely different questions this time than the last. And I'm going to just say, let's get started. Staci, I'm going to start with you. Here's our question. One of the big problems that I hear being the podcast host over and over again is, where do we find these group fitness instructors as the clubs are starting to reopen? As you both know, COVID comes, shuts down a lot of the indoor programs, and the group instructors had to kind of figure out a way to kind of continue to make money for themselves. So they all fled to virtual fitness, which, hey, that has been great. It's been a great addition or a great supplement to their workouts. But now that clubs are reopening, how do we get those girls and guys back in? So Staci, how are you finding group fitness instructors?
I would love to preface really quick that myself and Lauren did connect before this, and I'm going to speak more to the larger facility. So I oversee, as I mentioned earlier, a really large team of instructors. And before I answer that great question of how we can find instructors, we obviously are going to do whatever we can to bring our current teams or our previous teams back from pre-COVID. But I will admit that I think a lot of clubs, especially large facilities, need to reevaluate how we are taking care of these very important employees, because the more I hear from managers that they've lost so many instructors, I think we need to kind of look in the mirror as leaders and make sure that we're preventing this from continuing to happen, or if anything were to happen again, that we are taking good care of them, we're connecting with them, and we're there for them during a time like this. So I would say, look in the mirror, make sure you're doing all of those right things as a leader. And then the things that we do as a large facility are very much so we depend on instructor referrals. That's kind of, I think, my top choice. And then we do group auditions because we're fortunate in this area to have a lot of people who are certified or have some form of certification that's more formal. And then I would say, to kind of finish answering the question, that it's really tempting, I think, being a large club operator, to tempt your group fitness manager to go to other facilities and poach other instructors. And I do not recommend that. I highly do not recommend that because for two reasons. First being that most common for myself, whenever I have visited facilities, give them my name, give them my title, they don't come with me. They might say, oh, cool. Nice to know you. Nice to know that you oversee that team. Second is that if anyone were to leave a facility to work for you, how soon do you think that they would be leaving you for someone else if they got another opportunity? So those are my top three: instructor referrals, group auditions, and then very bottom of the list. You should always be checking out other facilities, but don't be poaching.
Can I just say thank you for saying that? You girls know I was group fitness manager for a long, long time. And there just was not a good feeling when you found out that another group fitness director was in your club taking your class. I don't know. Doesn't it kind of feel, I don't know, it feels like.
And taking class, I think, is good. I think they should be out there, but I hear you. And you must have had a great team that trusted you and believed in you as a leader, because that's what happens is they come to you and go, by the way, this person came to my class, gave me their card and said they'd love for me to teach with them. And you're like, thanks for telling me, because that's not okay. Taking class is okay. Asking them to teach for you is not okay.
Well, thank you for saying that it's not okay. I appreciate that. All right. So Lauren, you're going to tell us about a viewpoint from the smaller clubs, which, again, fitness industry, we have both sides. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, so I do have a lot of experience in really small towns. I've lived in bigger towns as well, but I do know that kind of a different set of challenges come with being in a smaller market. You don't maybe have just a ton of instructors to choose from that are already certified. So when I owned my studio in Clemson, South Carolina, which is population, I believe, like 14,000 people, there aren't a lot of instructors that are just banging down your door to teach. So one of the things that we did, and that I know a lot of people do, is go to their regulars or their front row. But my suggestion for everyone listening is to go to those people with a plan. If you just say, hey, I think you'd make a great instructor, report back when you're certified. One, a lot of people are just going to be overwhelmed and not do it. And then two, it may not come out with the best end product, or they may not come out as prepared as if you go to them and say, hey, I've really noticed you being on beat in class, and I feel like you are invested in our facility and in the community. And I know that you love this or that or both formats. I would love to sit down with you and tell you what's involved in becoming a fitness instructor. If that sounds like something that's good to you, I can help you find a certification. We put on practice sessions for all of our new instructors, and then we'll set you up for success with team teaching. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later on if we get there. But if I approach someone, I tell them, like, we're going to handhold you the entire way until you feel ready to teach, not just like go get certified and report back. And that usually has a lot better end result for you and for your potential new instructor. The other thing that is really helpful is to leverage your current staff. Could you go to your current instructors and say, hey, we are really in need of another bar instructor. Could I help you get certified in bar if you have time to take on another class? So helping your current instructors diversify what they offer. And then my third tip would be to look at your schedule and see how you can diversify your schedule to keep your current instructors teaching. So maybe they have a limited schedule, or if they're traveling in the summer, or a new instructor comes to you and you don't have a spot on your schedule right at that moment, could you rotate the Saturday and Sunday classes so that way you could keep that sub engaged until you could get them a regular class? Because I know a lot of time if you're working, in a bar only studio or a group fitness only studio, you have 40 classes and that one room is maxed out. So if a great instructor comes to you, you don't want to miss out on that because you don't have a time slot for them. So if you have rotating classes, you can get that person engaged with your community until you can find a spot. So you never want to miss out either, is my third tip. Don't miss out on a great instructor.
I really like that because that happens, what everybody wants where I was, everybody wants like somewhere around 9:30 in the morning, or they want 5:30 at night, somewhere in around there. And then, you get this great instructor and you're like, I have 11:30. They're like,
yeah.
Well, great answers, gals. Here's what I'm going to do. Normally, I wait till the end. Last time I waited to the end to answer some questions, but the questions are flying in. So I'm just going to pick a couple. And before we kind of shift gears and move to our next question, I'm gonna ask you a couple questions from all of our FBP family out there watching this. First one is Nicole from Auckland. She wants to know, Stacy, you mentioned about doing a group audition. She just wants to know, how many people are we talking in the group audition, because she is having visuals of flash dance.
That is a great question. I would recommend no more than 4. That's been our max. And I will say you are doing well if you have like a ton of people coming to you at one time for one specific format. And it could be a variety of formats. But my max, I would say, is 4. And the reason behind that is then you can get a little bit more time out of each person. And I've heard managers say that they can watch somebody teach for 5 minutes and they know exactly how they're going to teach with people. I need a little bit longer. I love to see the warm up, the kind of a more well-rounded experience, kind of the warm up, middle of class, and then end of class.
Yeah, totally got it. All right, here's a question I'm going to ask you both. This is from Marissa in LA. She wants to know, Lauren, we'll start with you talking about the smaller clubs. Is it common for Group X instructors to teach at multiple locations? And what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, that's a tough one. So yes, I'll speak to the smaller markets, and I would love to hear. There's a different take on it depending on where you live. So in a super small market like Clemson, South Carolina, or Stroughville, Mississippi, when there are literally 2, maybe 3 fitness facilities like total, right, offering classes, it can be hard to teach at multiple locations, or owners probably won't want you to teach at multiple locations. So I have both sides of that view. I've been a fitness instructor that has purely made their money teaching and personal training. So I get what that is like. But then I've also been a manager where I'm like, well, I don't really want my instructor teaching at 9 a.m. at my facility and then 9 a.m. the next day at a different facility. So what I say is always be open and honest with your management. If it is a situation where you're trying to make a living, you need to tell them that. And then also say, look, I really want to be as loyal to you as possible, but I also have to make a living. And as a manager and owner, I would do my absolute best to do everything that we could for that instructor. But if it came down to it and they really needed to teach at multiple locations, I kind of always, again, every situation was a little bit different, but I would ask that maybe if they were a bar instructor at our studio, but they wanted to go teach at a cycling studio or a yoga studio, definitely. I'm cool with that. But if you're teaching opposite days, the same format at different clubs, that can be where it can kind of get hard. But I think management needs to do a good job of making sure they're taking care of that instructor if they're asking them to not teach somewhere else.
All right. Great response. I think you were very clear. That was excellent. And now, Stacy,
I'm that just a little.
Yeah, I am. I'm going to ask
just
you
a tiny bit. Oh, perfect.
Yeah, your viewpoint coming from a larger club. Stacy, we'd love to hear your viewpoint on that as well.
Very similar to what Lauren said, because taking care of them, I think, is so important. Knowing that you cannot give them necessarily a full-time job as a group fitness manager, you really can't ask them to sign, let's say, a non-compete or, ask for them to only commit to you. But where you can meet them halfway is you can get really creative. Now we have virtual that we can be giving people opportunities for. We have outdoor. We have in-person, but we can also get creative. Sometimes I notice when instructors come to me for more opportunity, they don't necessarily mean they want to be teaching a regular class every week. They want to commit to that. They may just want to you could throw out, maybe we do a 6-week series of some classes that are really targeted so that they can really shine and show their knowledge and make it a unique experience. But it's not that it has to get so many participants for you to add it to the schedule, because budget is an issue as well. Or another idea could be a workshop. So you're still giving them opportunity. You're, helping them get the itch to teach that they're looking for, but you're also being economical.
Okay. Both of you, outstanding responses. One more question, and then we're going to move on to our second main question. And this one is for you, Lauren, from Lynn. And she wants to know, she's in a small town, smaller clubs, and she wants to know, do you pay for your instructor certifications?
Great question. And it really depends on the situation. We definitely do everything that we can to help our instructors financially, whether that is hosting and then giving the host site or giving one of our instructors the comp. If we reach those numbers, I have definitely paid for certifications in the past, especially if it's a current instructor that I would love for them to add a new format to their teaching repertoire so they can teach more at the studio. Or we've done, a scholarship program where we pay for a portion of it, or we pay for it up front and then they pay it back with work. So if it is ever a financial barrier, we would do everything that we possibly can to help the instructor. But I wouldn't say it's like a blanket statement where, yes, we pay for every single certification, but definitely you should always approach your management about what the options are.
Okay. Well, girls, I have to tell you, the questions are firing in.
Love it.
We have a lot of viewers out there and they just eat this topic up. It's always popular. I know I want to move on, but I have one more question. I just don't want to miss anybody's questions. And Stacy, this one is for you because you mentioned this earlier about incentives for referrals from current staff. Can you just keep it to the point, but how do you work that? What's your process?
I haven't had to incentivize too much. I would say for our private Pilates, they can be really, really difficult to find and they're more full-time. We benefit a lot from having our private Pilates instructors. So we have been known to do a referral bonus, and it's going to depend on your budget of what you can give the person who is referring the person. And then sometimes you can actually do a bonus for the applicant as well. That could be a way to bring them in. But I will have to say that we don't have to do that very often with group fitness. What I do is I ask the instructors, I say, hey, we could really use someone to teach in this day and time, this format. We need more of these instructors. And then they tend to kind of look around in their inner circle and outer circle for teachers they know.
All right, ladies, round one complete. You guys knocked that out of the park. Let's move on to question number 2. So we're going to kind of shift topics here. I'm going to ask both of you. Actually, Lauren, I'll let you answer first this time. So be ready. Here we go.
Ready.
What is your interview process to find the best instructors?
Sure. So the interview process, I think, varies a little bit for me based on the resume that the instructor comes in with, right? So if they're a really veteran instructor, they've taught a lot of classes, or maybe I've seen them teach, the interview process may look a little bit different. But let's say I'm dealing with an instructor who is fairly newly certified, or I haven't seen them teach before. I always ask anyone that approaches me, either in person or email, if they've taken classes at the facility before. Because even if they're a veteran instructor, I would like them to take at least a few classes so they understand what the format looks like in our facility with our people, kind of the vibe and style, get to know the people a little bit, because it also should be a good fit for them. And I tell fitness instructors the same thing. When I move every single time, I take the first couple of months to just take classes and see where I even want to interview. So I would have them take classes first and then report back once they've taken the classes. Then we'd sit down for a question and answer style interview, get to know, lay out expectations, what their schedule looks like. Then, if we still both feel like the process should continue, we would do a formal audition where they would teach a mini class. If the schedule allows, I'd love to have them teach a small portion of a live class so you can really see them in action. I feel like everyone's cueing and energy is better when there are real participants. But if the schedule doesn't allow, I would have myself, or maybe myself and a couple of other instructors, do the audition.
All right. Excellent answer. Stacy, you're up. Love to hear what you have to add.
So definitely all of the above for me. And actually, that reminds me, I just interviewed a Zumba instructor today and I forgot to tell her, you need to come to our classes before I need to have her take some classes. But along the lines of taking classes, so we have, similar to what Lauren said as far as expectations, is at the facility that I work with, we require uniforms. We have very strict, we call them show ready standards. So that's really going to be important for you to get those things out there up front as much as possible, just so you're not wasting anybody's time, yourself and the applicant, so that they're prepared for what the culture is like and what the expectation is like. And then the two questions I would say I 100% ask in the initial interview are going to be specifically asking them yes or no questions, pretty much, just asking them exactly what got them into the industry, what inspires them about teaching, and what makes their class unique. And I'm really looking for, when I hear answers to these questions, for them to not say that working out is really why they teach. This is not their workout, it's the participants' workout. They should be doing that on their own time. And then the other thing I'm looking for is that they're not considering themselves a performer, but more of an actual instructor, and that they want everyone to succeed in their class as much as possible. So those are the two things I'm looking for in the interview. We do our audition, as I said earlier. Sometimes it's a group audition. Sometimes if I really need someone, I will do it as an individual. But really, as a manager, you need to decide what you're looking for before you sit down with anyone, so that you can be really specific about what you're looking for them to answer, for you to kind of dig deeper and really learn if this is going to work out. And then I wanted to kind of preface back to the how do you find instructors. Something I forgot to mention is you should always be recruiting. So you shouldn't be last minute desperate for an instructor, or your interview process is not going to be what you need it to be in order to find the right instructor, and not be from a desperate place. We're never a good judger of character. So we want to make sure that we're prepared in advance of anything suddenly happening. We all know as group fitness managers, someone suddenly gets pregnant or gets injured or gets sick or has to move. So we want to be prepared in advance. So start that interview process with people early.
Yeah, I'm going to say to you two ladies, raise your hand if you've ever hired out of desperation. Raise your hand if that not ended well.
Yeah. Not the best.
All right. Such expert advice. Fantastic. So, of course, the questions are rolling in, which is what we want. So, Stacy, this one goes to you. You mentioned show standards. Michelle in Chicago would like for you to express some examples of what your show standards are. She said she loved that.
That's a great question. So we try to set ourselves apart as being as professional as possible. So our instructors actually are given a name tag. It's a magnetic name tag. It's considered part of their uniform. They need to be wearing it. It also happens to have their anniversary date on it, which is kind of fun, so that people can see how long they've been working at our facility. We have a uniform from head to toe. It's kind of a Lululemon-like uniform, all one color. And then we want to make sure that their obviously hair is neat and dry and clean. We don't require makeup of any kind, but we only allow one earring per ear and not a massive amount of earrings on their hands. And then of course, really no necklaces, because we don't want them getting caught on anything. You're in a fitness environment. And we actually go as far as having all white shoes too. And that actually is a fun one, because pre-COVID, we were all about being the cleanest facility in the air, and as much as possible. And the white shoes were our way of saying, hey, these people can keep their shoes white because our facility is so clean. So that's kind of a fun take on that cleanliness and that standard. We go as far as also not allowing any colored hair or visible tattoos. So it's pretty intense.
Oh, wow. The tattoos, really?
It's tough. Yeah. It gets tough to find people willing to do that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, you both talked about doing the auditions, and whether it's by themselves or do you put them in a group like class setting. I learned a lesson. I did a one-on-one with a Zumba instructor, right? Now, I'm not saying I am like Broadway dancer, but group X, you can hear the beat, right? And it just didn't go well. The audition didn't go well. And the girl got so upset. She stopped like 3/4 of the way the audition, and she looked at me and she's like, I'm sorry, but you cannot keep the beat of the music. And I just can't do this audition anymore. And she stormed out, and I stood there. I was like, wait, what? Like,
she wasn't a good hire anyway. Don't worry.
Yeah, no. Let it go.
So after that, I'm like, well, we'll have 4 people in here and we'll still see if, it was just like, it was kind of funny, but then it's kind of like mad.
That's crazy.
Yeah. No. All right. Let's see here. Lauren, I know I have a question for you. Let's see here. Kelly in Florida. Hey, my state. There we go. You also mentioned other expectations in that last answer. What expectations other than teaching class do you expect from your instructors?
Oh, great question. So 2, we expect them to be certified, actually 3. So we expect them to be certified, CPR certified, and then also they have to carry their own liability insurance because we do classes inside and outside. Obviously, all clubs should have their own liability insurance, but we like our instructors. So those expectations, but then also as far as their performance expectations or their actual work expectations, we expect them to be there 15 minutes early. We actually count that or roll that in as part of their pay. We expect them to follow kind of the class blueprints that we outline for them or format. So most of the classes, especially at the last studio that I owned, were not pre-choreographed. They were freestyle, but we always expect them to teach to the format that is on the schedule. So staying up to date on what those are, what those look like, taking classes from other instructors. We obviously don't mandate that since we don't pay them for it, but we let them know that the expectation is to support their other instructors, to be part of the community when we do events for the studio or for the gym. We expect them to participate. Again, if participation is mandatory, we would pay them for it. But if it is kind of like a fun event that they would be at anyways, we would hope that they would come and engage, and then also stay after class for 10 minutes to engage with the participants. And then we didn't ask a lot of cleaning duties. If there were cleaning duties involved for like the last instructor of the day, again, we'd pay extra for that. But taking out the trash, making sure the water is refilled, letting us know if it's empty, kind of things like that.
I'm glad you said that, Lauren, because I wanted to ask both of you, do you expect with your expectations, your instructors to work the front desk, help check members in, cleaning? Now with all of the COVID regulations, do you ask them to do that, or do you just want them to come in, do what they're good at, and then they can leave? Stacy, go ahead. I'll let you start with that one.
Really, we are fortunate in a large facility that we have a robust cleaning staff. I will say we've been experiencing a difficulty in restaffing that department. And so there have been times where the expectation really is, if there's towels left out, it's less about the like deep cleaning, but more about leaving it better than you found it is what we're looking for. Additional expectations for our larger facility would be, though, not necessarily cleaning, but the communication. I need the team to be aware of what's going on, reading emails, reading newsletters. I do my best to keep it really clear, really easy. I'm not sending them a lot of communication, but they need to be paying attention.
Okay. Lauren, I'd love to hear, you're from that smaller fitness studio. Do they have to help check in, front desk, clean? I know you said they, help do the trash and stuff.
Yeah. So I will say a lot of times, yes, they are checking in their own classes. Sometimes we do have a front desk person, or in some places that I've been, different size of smaller studios, we've had the front desk person, which a great way to keep costs down, but have a front desk person is to trade a membership with that person. And then once everything is started, they get to go in and take class. So we've done that a lot. One thing I did want to mention that, for smaller gyms, for smaller studios, budget's always the issue, right? So as a manager and someone who was an instructor first, I always want to pay my instructors for as much as I possibly can, but I can't pay them for 10 hours of training on top of their class, or a lot of times gyms and studios can't, but I can incentivize them just like we, do for instructors that go the extra mile with subbing and helping out. So if I have an instructor that always takes the trash out, always helps with the towels, is getting there early to check in, you better believe that instructor is going to get first pick of the litter on the schedule when we remake it every semester. And if there's a comp spot for a certification that instructor wants, he or she is going to get it. So I am always kind of constantly keeping notes of those instructors that are above and beyond helpful. And will do everything I can, even if it's just a handwritten note or a thank you phone call, to thank them for helping put in that extra work.
So Lauren, I think you completely read my mind, because I was going to follow up with the question of, do you pay them for the extra time that they're either coming early or staying late, or if they're jumping behind the front desk and then they end up being there 30 minutes past their class? So Stacy, go ahead. What do you guys do? Do you pay them, or is it just
Totally similar to what Lauren said? You can't really just noticing. I actually ended up, quick story, in a clubhouse room with a bunch of studio instructors who were all upset about how they hadn't really been hearing from their larger gym that they may have been teaching at. And the interesting thing is I jumped into the conversation and I said, hey, I'm just curious, what is it that would make a difference for you to want to come back to a large facility? And the answers were not pay. The answers were, we want to be seen, we want to be valued, we want to be appreciated. So the things that Lauren was speaking about are really go the extra mile. Of course, you should definitely pay your instructors for their teaching. It's hard to say if someone's going to pick up a towel or do a quick sweep, or there's a level of the amount of time you'd want that to be happening, and you should be aware of that. But if it's required, that's where it needs to be more of a that's kind of the threshold, I guess, of what needs to be paid and what doesn't. So as far as meetings or expecting them to do something, then that when they know that that's expected of them, then they should be paid for it.
Okay. All great answers. No wrong answer. I love it. I really feel like you two girls are giving a lot of great advice and helping a lot of our Fitness Business Podcast family out there viewing in tonight. So I'm going to move on to our final question, because then we still have a couple of viewer questions to get through as well. This is just going so great. Let me ask you girls, when you make your selection, so you hire somebody, correct? You got a new instructor and they join your team. What does their first 30 days look like onboarding? Let's see. We'll start with Stacy. Go ahead. You can start us off.
Sure. So we have quite a bit of orientation and training just for the club-based training. What we're looking for as far as their behavior, we have an acronym that we use that we want to make sure that they're following, that they're smiling. So we do go over all of those expectations initially, and then we do departmental training, get their uniform, get them prepared, and then we do our best to introduce them to as many people as possible. So what Lauren alluded to earlier was having them team teach. So we really just want them to meet instructors. We want them to meet the front desk. We want them to meet everyone that we can, so that they can feel like this has become a new home for them, and that they're prepared for what the expectations are and who they can go to for help if they need it. We do have a team Facebook page that we'll introduce new instructors on. So we'll do a quick video of who they are, have them introduce themselves, share their favorite thing about teaching or something that is unique about them. And then the team will like and say hi and welcome them to the team. And then we, of course, have to train them on things like check-in, attendance, all of that. And then I do attend their class a lot in the beginning. Not so much because I don't want them to feel like I'm checking up on them all the time, but I want them to know that I am aware and I'm present and I'm there for any questions they have initially. Those first few classes are really scary. Sometimes I'll go to part of it and take off, but I really want them to know that I will be there for them and that I'm there for them if they need any help, and to also see how they're doing initially.
All right, great. Awesome. Nothing worse though when the boss comes in your class. I will say that.
I want them to get used to it so they don't have to be so scared when I show up. And then they know that I just because I'm coming, I do like to just take classes sometimes. I'm not always evaluating.
That's why I'm always the boss, because I'm like, I don't want anybody coming in my class, so I'll just be the boss. All right, Lauren, I'm going to ask you the same exact question again. Tell us about what your onboarding, the first 30 days onboarding looks like with a new instructor.
Sure. I will say real quick, though, to what Stacy said, I have taught at really large box chain gyms before. And I taught at one specifically, which shall not be named, where the group fitness director interviewed me and I never saw them again for 2 years, like never saw them. And so although it can definitely be scary when your boss is there, I think that does go a long way in creating community because, you know, fitness instructors, we come in, we go out, and we don't necessarily always see each other. So although I might be nervous as a new instructor, I would really appreciate that Staci is taking the time to come into my classes. So it's twofold. But I'll take the spin on this one a little bit as if you're having a kind of newer or greener instructor. So maybe you got that regular to get certified or your current teacher got a new certification. So what the first 30 days looks like in that case. Staci did such a great job of explaining, you know, more of the kind of corporate onboarding situation. So from a teaching onboarding perspective, usually what we'll do is once they have auditioned and they've gotten their certification, maybe we've done a couple of practice sessions together by this time, then they are going to be assigned a mentor instructor. Sometimes it's myself or maybe my business partner, or if possible, I really, really love assigning it to some of our senior instructors because that means a lot to them that they are recognized as someone who is not only a great instructor, but now we're asking them to pass their knowledge on. And honestly, that is how I decided to change my career to group fitness was because I was asked to mentor instructors in college. And I was like, wait, this is what I want to do forever. So they are assigned a mentor instructor and then they break down, or the mentee and the mentor will break down the class into parts. So maybe you have the warm up and then like the first 3 songs, second chunk of songs, third chunk of songs, core and cool down, or however the format breaks up, right? Every class is a little bit different. And there will be a practice session if needed with myself or that mentor instructor to kind of check the choreography, at least for the first 2 weeks. And then that new instructor would come in, they would maybe teach the warm up and then pass the mic to the veteran instructors. The veteran instructor would give them feedback. There may be another practice session if needed with myself or that veteran instructor. And then the next week they teach a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more until they've taught the whole class. But they always have that veteran instructor there. If an emergency happens or if they just totally blank on their choreography, they can pass the mic off. So it's kind of just that safety net. But then they're also constantly getting that constructive feedback. So really by the end, and I would say it's normally a 6-week process. By the end of that 6-week process, hopefully they feel really comfortable and it's less intimidating than handing someone the mic and being like, teach for 60 minutes, good luck, you know? So that tends to work really well. And then of course, there's the onboarding of learning the software and what the systems are, but that's kind of how it works from a teaching perspective.
Okay, awesome. Well, you Fit Pros are bringing it today. Absolutely bringing it. Love your answers. All right, we have 2 more questions from our viewers that I'd like to get through before we wrap things up. Let's see. The first one is from Robin. She's in Montana and she wants to know, how do you separate? This is a good one. How do you separate the instructor's skill set from the performer skill set? She says she has a great performer that the members love, but their instructor skill is poor. She's like, help. Lauren, do you want to go first on this one?
Yes, I wish I could ask some questions back to her, but I'm going to guess that she's saying maybe she's like not as much of a team player or engager, so she's great at the front of the class. So I would take this from a couple of different ways, depending on how far into it, I guess you are. So if you're just noticing this being an issue, the first thing that I would probably do is I always try to do continuing education with my staff, whether that's bringing in a certification or CEU course or just leading it kind of myself with best practices. So maybe I would choose creating community and engagement as the topic for that next staff training and kind of just discuss that with the group as a whole. So we're not necessarily calling people out, and talk about moving around the room, talking to people before and after class, treating new people as VIPs, because honestly, some instructors just may not know. They may think I'm supposed to get up there and perform. And if you give them tangible tips, like standing at the door as people coming in, instead of just talking to your friends, moving from the front of the room. And I even would say, I need you to move from the front of the room at least 3 times during class. Like, tell them how many times, not just like, I suggest you do this, right? So give them those bullet points. Ask them to stay after class. Ask them to start learning people's names. I'm a visual learner, so I always make sure my instructors can see the names of their participants, even if that's just like in the check-in process, so that they can see before and after class who is going to be there. And then maybe invite them to your class or to another instructor's class that does the engagement and community really well. And just ask them, hey, what did you enjoy about Susie's class? And hopefully they're going to point out some of those things that are creating engagement and creating community and making the participants feel successful as things that they enjoyed from Susie's class, because we know Susie does that really well. And hopefully they'll apply it back to their class. So those are some of my maybe non-confrontational tips for handling that.
All right. Staci, do you have anything to add to that?
Just a little bit. That was so great, and so great to involve the whole team, because maybe someone else you haven't discovered yet could use that feedback. I also recommend to potentially, as you mentioned a little bit, was to actually create a numerical value around it. So I do the exact same thing. I say 3 times you should be coming off the stage or coming off the bike. And then when I do their annual review or I meet with them formally, I can evaluate that and talk to them about it and say, so how many times did you come off the stage that last class that I attended? And then we can have a conversation about it. The other thing I'd recommend is that virtual education has become so valuable for us. And I have to say, because, and I don't mean like formal education, I mean informal education, as in asking the instructor to watch themselves teach. So it was like pulling teeth to get my team to do that before the pandemic. But now that most of our classes are being recorded, or they've been on demand, or they've been live streamed, I can now, if they're teaching live an in-person group and it's being recorded, they can watch themselves, and I can ask them specific questions. Okay, when you watched yourself, did you really feel that you were explaining things in a way that everyone could understand and connect with? Were you facing the students? So you can ask them more specific questions, and then they can answer that for themselves. And then you could even share the why. As you know, our whole team is really working on doing the best to make sure that everyone feels successful, everyone feels important. And I'd love for you to work on these 3 or 4 things and then reevaluate. You have to go back to them with what you're seeing, with what you're experiencing, or it may just go over. You want it to sink in a little bit.
All right, girls, just one more really quick. And then I think we've got through all of our questions, because I want to make sure all of our viewers out there, our FBP family, they are being heard. Their questions are being heard. So Staci, Mark in San Diego wants to know, Staci, do you really participate like a member?
I do. I really do. I love taking the instructor's classes. Is my brain having trouble shutting off while I'm attending their class? Absolutely. But I will say that when you do it regularly, the best part about it is that the participants start to notice as well and get to know you. And it's a really great way for you to get some good feedback from those people who attend class, because they get excited about seeing you. They hopefully are knowing who you are. I do not love it when the instructor says, oh, over there, by the way, it's my boss. So I'm like, don't talk about me. I'm not here. I wear a hat. I try to be really incognito, but I really do love taking classes.
Yeah. Well, ladies, thank you so much for sharing all of your expert advice, knowledge, tips, your passion for group fitness. It certainly did show tonight in our Facebook Live event. So thank you so much. And I also want to sincerely thank you for being a fitness business podcast fanatic. Lauren, you are on there all the time promoting us, talking about episodes, pushing out little nuggets that you have learned. And I'm very grateful for that. And Staci, you as well. I know you do a little podcasting yourself. So I know you probably can relate being the host sometimes, how challenging it can be. But girls, thank you so much for our FBP. Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for coming on. Thank you, everybody out there in Facebook land, all of our FBP family that has come on tonight, even if you didn't watch the whole thing, you just watched a little piece, or you submitted a question, or you took notes, whatever it is. Thank you so much. And if you would like to be a fitness business podcast fanatic, just like Lauren and Stacy, please go onto our website, which is very simple, www.fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. There is a tab at the top. It says community. Click on that, and then voila, there you go. It'll tell you how you can register to be a fitness business podcast fanatic. And we are looking for a whole new round. Yes, we will lose these two lovely ladies. And for third quarter, we're looking for a new set of fanatics. So please join us. All right, girls, anything else? Are we good?
Thank you.
We're good. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you so much. It was great having you girls on the show. Thank you for joining us today, Staci and Lauren. And hey, everybody out there listening, if you want to get in touch with Staci or Lauren, please head on over to our show notes at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com, or when you subscribe to the best show notes in the podcast world, they are emailed directly to you. How easy is that? Subscribe to the show notes at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com.
Member experience is more than just NPS. With MXM's Member Experience Toolkit, you build a unified view of the member experience, from purchase to onboarding to everyday usage and cancellation. Wire your entire organization with actionable feedback using MXN's Member Experience Toolkit. To find out more, go to mxmetrics.com.
Quickfire 5.
A big welcome for Keith Burnett, the CEO of Global Market for Les Mills International. And now let's find out more about you, Keith, and why our FBP family needs to tune in next week to listen to you. FBP family, today's Quickfire 5 questions are brought to you by Keith Burnett. He is the CEO of Global Market for Les Mills International, and he has been on a pretty amazing journey. So let's hear it for Keith Burnett. Hey, welcome to the show, Keith.
Yeah, thanks, Dory. Nice to be on.
Oh, absolutely. We're so glad that you're here. Are you ready for the Quickfire 5 questions where we're going to learn everything about you?
Ready as I'll ever be.
Okay, number one, we'd love for you to tell us a life lesson that you learned from the pandemic.
Great question. Yeah, I think it's really simple for me. The pandemic, helped me understand how short life can be, and given it's so short, it just can't be boring.
Definitely not boring. All right, here we go. Number 2, I can't wait to hear. If you play a character in any movie, what character would it be?
Yeah, tough question. There's so much choice, but I plump for Indiana Jones. I think he's like me, somebody who thinks he's an adventurer of some kind. So yeah, he'd be the guy I'd play.
Okay, and number 3, please complete this statement. Sunday morning, you can find me.
Find me. Yeah, last year it would have been on a rowing machine indoors for pretty much most of Sunday morning. This year, it's actually you'd find me on a bike wearing some ridiculous lycra. So I never thought it'd come to me, but yeah, that's what I'd be doing on a Sunday morning.
Great visual. All right, and what is your number 1 book recommendation that we should all read?
So yeah, this is a really cool one. So a good friend of mine who's a professor at IMD, the business school in Lausanne, has written a book with her daughter, actually, which is called Where the Wild Things Were. Her name's Susan Goldsworthy, and it's a children's and adults book, which is kind of, to entertain and educate, and it's really all about the animals and plants in our world. And it's, this scary stat that 1/3 or 1/2 of all species could be extinct by 2050. And it's just such a cool illustrated story that is hugely impactful, and tells us all about what we can do to help that situation be different.
Okay, great recommendation. And finally, here is your big pitch. You have the chance here to invite our FBP family back next week when you're going to be on our show. So take it away.
Yeah, so for me, I guess it's a promise for something inspiring and different in an environment where we're, I think, regularly being boarded by all sorts of webinars and podcasts, and an ironclad commitment, I think, not to be boring, with 3 reasons to listen. One, you can find out whether I decided to row the Atlantic during a global pandemic to avoid either wearing a mask, avoiding lockdowns or virtual meetings, or just actually to avoid the annual company budget process. Number 2, you can learn the very important toilet technique on a 25-foot rowing boat in 40-foot swells in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Or number 3, you can learn to lose 40-odd pounds in 6 weeks the hard way.
Okay, 3 great lessons that we are going to learn next week and find out if you survived, right?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, everybody, I invite you back next week with Keith Burnett from Les Mills International. I'm telling you, you will love next week's show with Keith Burnett. So make sure you come back and join us. Now, just a tip to make your life easier. Make sure you subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast player, or even better, let us do the work for you and send you the show. Subscribe at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. So how about today's episode? Staci and Lauren ooze passion for group fitness. And frankly, I'm kind of jealous, but don't tell them I said that. These 2 ladies are part of our Fitness Business Podcast Fanatic family, and we would love for you to join in as well. Go to www.fitnessbusinesspodcast.com and click on the community tab and fill out the application to become an FBP fanatic. All we ask is that you listen, support, and share to your fitness friends and family your favorite FBP episodes. That's it. It's that easy. Thank you to our founding partner, Active Management, our partners, Keep Me, My Zone, Discover Strength, Tribe Team Training, One Fit Stop, our advertisers, Rex Roundtables, MX Metrics, and Vapor Fresh. And we believe what you leave behind is not what's engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others.